Alright, well that's a bummer that I let him chase me out in the middle of that thought, because now I don't remember what that thought was, and I've packed up all my junk. So now I'm annoyed a little bit. What were we talking about? This is going to end up being a different kind of thing. And I'm sorry for that a little bit, but kind of a little bit not. I am homeless, you know, and so there's a certain amount of, I do probably want to get my ass back up that hill before it's too dark or too late in the day. I don't really want to generate a sweat when it's cold outside, because I'm going to get all this clothes off and I'm going to be wet, and I'm going to get into the new dry clothes and they're going to be wet, and so then I'm going to be wet at night, and that's not good. That's how you get sick. And so, man, what a dizzying array of synchronicity we've experienced today, man. If you just don't know the signs of what an actual holy man goes through, I'm gonna end up having to take these videos and break them up with remixes and actually talk over myself and demonstrate to you how the magic is actually happening around me as we're going. Like, beyond the damn fly that won't leave me alone, because that's a tiny, tiny piece of it. That guy's 316 using Christianity in the same way that, what's his name? Jesus Christ, lady. Constantine did. Wow, everybody takes this curve so tight in their giant vehicles. Anyway, there's ritual magic. I've always known it was there. I always listened to professionals, you know, theologians, people with PhDs, people who've written books. I listen to them talk about this stuff and they outright deny it. But they outright deny it because they can't acknowledge, they can't admit that they don't know anything about it. Dr. Justin Sledge, man, of, I think his channel is called like Esoterica. I don't remember, I haven't watched it in a couple of years because I pissed him the fuck off by asking him if it isn't obvious that Saul cum Paul was in a mystical Jewish pre-Kabbalah cult. And he straight up blocked my ass for asking. I paid him $5 to ask the question, and he straight up blocked my ass. You want to talk about the kind of people that Jesus didn't like? It's the kind of people who accept your money and cash your paycheck and block your fucking ass. That's the kind of people Jesus didn't like. Those are the kind of people Jesus had no truck with. And these are, I remember what I'm talking about. Fuck that guy. God, I hate that shit. Fucking car people, man. I don't like you. You're going to hell. You just are. You're killing the planet. You stink. Like, look at this guy's stupid fucking truck. Whatever. Every one of you is a murder waiting to happen. Every one of you is a tragedy waiting to happen. God, the number of people driving alone. It bothers me. Anyway, what I was talking about is Jesus didn't necessarily need to, if he was a son of man, he didn't need necessarily to be a carpenter. The reason that they said he was a craftsman is because it's kind of a bad look if he was the son of a banker. Especially if he was the son of a banker from Nazareth. Because what we just read was in John, Nathanael asking whether anything good could come out of Nazareth. Because it appears that Nazareth has sold out not just to Rome and the Roman government and the Roman legions, because remember, these are all men who, I've been telling you, all these disciples, none of these disciples is just a guy. They are, every single one of them, anti-Roman insurgents. Every single one of the 12. Every single one of them. No exceptions. That's why now, I've told you this in previous episodes, but that's why now modern people want to say that Jesus was an insurgent. Because there's all this evidence that everybody around him was. That's even why he's talking to centurions. A centurion is higher up than a legionary. Legion is 1,000, a centurion is 100. This guy's more important. Jesus is talking to important people. Very important people. But he's a nobody. And anyway, Nazareth seems to not just be sold out to Rome and the Roman government, the Roman army, the Roman way of life. They seem to have sold out to the Roman sex tourism trade. A very real thing. You think sex trafficking is bad now? Holy shit. The Muslim caliphates drove the Zoroastrian ethnic genetic religion to near extinction. The Parsi people today, of whom you may have passing familiarity because Freddie Mercury in that movie. Yeah, the Parsi people, Freddie Mercury's parents were the way they were because they were hunted down and extincted because of the frankly gross misuse of their daughters in their religion. The Muslim sex traffic, second and third and harem, filling barbarian fucking human trafficking, loved Zoroastrian women. I'm not moving any faster than this dude. I don't know why you didn't just whip yourself around that. Anyway, my hips hurt and my pelvis has no muscles in it from my asshole to somewhere below my belly button. They've all rotted away years ago, so I'm not pushing myself harder than this. I really don't care how big your stupid fucking truck is or how long. Yeah, keep my hand in my pocket. It looks like I've got a fucking gun. I'm not stupid. This is not the. I love that guy's playing air drums on his dashboard. That's the only thing a car is good for. So when they're asking, is there anything good that can come out of Nazareth? They're asking you to think exactly about what I'm telling you. Jesus is running a cult. Cults get weird ideas about sex. Always. Always crazy ideas. Always crazy, stupid stuff they want to do. And always with two young people. And always about covenants and bondage. Slavery. Always. Always. You don't even have to look further than the fucking Mormons. But you can look at any of the cults that are running now. You're just your low level. Hey, I can almost hear it on my right ear. Your sort of low level, new agey is what they call them. Cults now are like that. There's a guy who was recently put in jail for diddling teenagers. Calls himself Jesus. Which is, it's not just abhorrent because of the teenager thing. It's abhorrent because Jesus isn't hanging out with teenage girls. All of the women that come to him that are mothers, he sends away with food and money. And none of them has a husband. And so there's a certain amount of what might have fucked Jesus up is he made one indiscretion. He did the magic on another man's wife. That's what always happens. And if you meditate on this long enough that you've come to the same conclusion that I have, you come to the conclusion that it's okay. If you're an evil, dumb shit, it's not okay. It's another man's wife. It's not okay to do magic on her. Not in front of him. I've slept with other men's wives. And sure, I was doing ritual magic on them, but I was doing ritual healing magic on these women because these men had done so much damage to them, spiritually and pelvically. Was it the right thing to do? Absolutely. They were better people after knowing me. Did Jesus do the right thing? Absolutely not. Not if what happened is he got himself locked into an infinite time loop where he keeps coming out of his own mom when what he wanted to do was come out of his wife, who turns out isn't his wife. That's the problem. God makes it very clear. One man, one woman, forever. Not, well, we can kinda, no. I was married, I'm a divorcee. It's very unlikely that I'll actually ask another woman to marry me romantically in that way. Any marriage I get into from here out is going to be a business relationship. God damn, she just hit the fucking gutter. People. Just because you're looking at me doesn't mean you also need to dramatically drive your vehicle toward me. Like this car that's about to pass me had to dramatically overcorrect. And then they stare at me like I'm doing something wrong. I'm wearing gray slacks and a black sweater. Look at me. I just look like I'm about 19 on my way home from work. Leave me the fuck alone. You don't have to stare at me. It's weird, man. Humans are weird, you fucking car people, looky-loo assholes. Focus on what's in front of you before one of your dumbasses drives up on this curb and kills my stupid fucking ass. Ugh. It's hard to talk about Jesus and be stressed. You guys don't understand. I don't have to be calm. You don't have to be calm to talk about Jesus and religion. Absolutely don't. This stuff all goes hand in hand. The philaletheia and the honesty and the emotions, it all goes hand in hand. Look, I've eaten way too much acid and I'm too fucking hungry, frankly, to give a shit. All I've had to eat is some sugar and some caffeine. Ugh. Yeah, you start to get irritable and grumpy when you're fasting. It starts to get annoying. And so there's a certain amount of, I'm not gonna just pretend to be all hey guy for you. It's just not happening when I'm hungry. It incentivizes you if you want these to be in a better mood where I've got a lot of energy and I'm bouncing around and I'm my manic feeling my oat self. If you want to see that guy, you got to send him dollars. That's how that works. I'm a vending machine of good vibes when I've got food in my belly. You know what? That's a fucking tagline, isn't it? A vending machine of good vibes. You feed me potato chips, and I'll feed you good vibes. Man, you don't even know. I might actually look and see if I can spend this last $1.25 I've got on a bag of potato chips. That sounds so good right now. You know, when we were talking about living simply and simplicity, that guy didn't even look to see if there was any. This lady's not going to look to see if there's anybody in the crosswalk either. We're talking about simplicity and living simply. The most important takeaway, no one's watched that video yet. No one has watched that video yet. But the most important takeaway from living simply is that you get to get excited about little things like bags of potato chips or, you know, and another ounce of fries, getting from the small to the medium or the medium to the large. And god damn, people are so dumb. You know, 15 feet from the turn is not when you turn your light on, your turn signal. If you're at a stoplight, you turn it on immediately after you're not making that right turn. You know you're making the next right turn. And there's only 75 feet between the turn you're at now and the next right turn. So you turn it on as soon as you don't make that right. God, and you don't accelerate to full speed. So you're not start, herky jerking your car. It's bad for your car, it's bad for the flow of traffic. It's annoying for the person immediately behind you. The person 4 cars behind you doesn't know what the fuck is going on. Why is traffic herky jerking like this? Man, this guy's gonna drive right into that fucking pole. What a dude. I could just do this. This could literally, I could just be the I'm walking here podcast. Hey, I'm walking here. That guy was gonna drive right into that fucking telephone pole. No, that's so damn funny. God damn, cigarettes got expensive. I'm looking around like, just looked over at this gas station thinking like, in a couple of days I'm gonna need nicotine in a bad way. $9 for a pack of fucking Newports. Man, when I worked at UDF, that was $6.50. Cigarettes got expensive under Biden. Not that anybody thought any different was gonna happen, but holy balls. If Jesus made a mistake, it wasn't just sleeping with another man's wife. It was doing the marriage sacrifice, the marriage ceremony sacrifice that puts a baby in another man's wife. You don't understand. The binding of a marriage, the man gets nothing. He gets one thing. That womb. He gets to guarantee that it's his child in that belly. That's the only thing he gets. And if you as a couple, woman and man who is not your husband, break that, there's no forgiveness for that. That right there, that's what Jesus is talking about, the kind of crime against another human being for which your soul is just obliterated. The people who do these kinds of things, these are the kind of people like Elizabeth Bathory who think they're going to get the reincarnation jumpstart to where they want to land. And they're not. Jesus proves it. Jesus low-key, not even low-key, high-key proves it. Because Jesus, like the thing you can't understand, I started to talk about this probably about episode 7 or 8. Jesus and it took me a while to come around on that guy. Not just that there's no evidence of him historically. You won't find it. The Gospels are telling you that don't look. Jesus even tells you not to look. But I think the gospel writers knew he failed, and that's why it's the good news. And he says, I've told these poor people good news. Well, good news to me sounds like what I was told when I was told on day 5 of having not eaten that I would be sent a person's stubbornness. And what I said is, well, I don't know how I'm going to eat on stubborn. Being stubborn is how I got to here. I don't know how I'm going to eat on that. But that's irrelevant. I don't know how you eat on good news. And it was never obvious to me as a child how you get to heaven on good news. How that feeds the soul any more than it feeds the body. And I'm still not sure I know. But I know the more days that I'm alive, the more likely I am to figure it out. Because I'm getting a hell of a lot closer than I've ever been before. I don't know if you've been paying attention through these. I think we're on 17 now. Maybe I'm going to call this one like 16 part 2 or something like that. I'm a pretty quick learner. And I've got most of the grand narrative of history figured out. Because if it can't be what everybody else says it is, then it has to be something else. And as many people as have offered grand narratives of history in history as there have been, we're running out of alternatives, if you understand. Once we split the atom, things got pretty easy. from a certainty certitude standpoint. So this cosmogony stuff, it matters. It might not matter to you because you're on your first trip and you haven't done anything bad enough to get burned up for it. So eventually you'll want to come back and you'll want to experience it again. But if that fortune teller is anything approaching right, I'm on my 33rd and final. This is my Christ trip, and I want off this rock. But I got on this rock with questions. It's something that you don't understand is letting me starve. Gives me the answers, because I go back to the source where all the answers are contained. I get what I want if I starve to death. But you're left here to find it yourself, without me. You're left to rely on someone who's going to lie to you. Pathologically. Institutionally. Ethically. It's more ethical to lie to you about this stuff. It's more ethical to keep you in the dark. Because if you're ignorant, if you don't know, then you can't be held guilty. You can't be held accountable. You can't be punished. You just get cast out into the wilderness. Either way, you get eaten by Azazel. That ritual, that scapegoat ritual didn't have a psychopomp, which means that I'm right, and that the psychopomp may have entered the religious mind, may have entered the religious mainstream about the 1st century BC. And if I'm right about that, if I'm right that the psychopomp entered in the first century BC, that might mean that Jesus knew exactly what he was doing. And if Jesus knew exactly what he was doing, that means that Mary knew exactly what he was doing. And that means that Judas knew exactly what he was doing. Because the Gospels of Mary and Judas make it very clear that Peter was a dumb shit. Violent and quick to anger. His response to everything was anger, regardless of whether it was appropriate. That was my father. And I'll tell you what my mother did. She cheated on him for attention. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if Mary just got bored with him. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he fucking sold her into slavery so he could have his boat. Men do shit like that. Marry a woman, promise her XYZ, and then fucking sell her into sex slavery. How many women in porn are there because their boyfriend thought it would be a good idea? How many women are in sex trafficking today because their boyfriend thought it would be a good idea? I'll tell you something insane, like 85% of homosexual males are only homosexual because their boyfriend thought it would be a good idea. Their abuser and groomer, in other words. And we ignore this because it's convenient to us. Because nobility went nowhere. Went absolutely nowhere. Jesus' beef was not with Rome. Jesus' beef was with Zion. Jesus never meant to make it to Britain. I don't believe he did. I think the stuff with Joseph of Arimathea, if it wasn't tacked on, posthumous, it was tacked on to the cult late in his life. Probably because Mary got pregnant before the ritual. That happens all the time. How many times did you sleep with your significant other before you were married? You think that everybody in the past was actually waiting? They had to enforce that shit with violence back in the day, especially in the medieval period. It's all over the King Arthur romances. It's all over ancient literature. No one's ever respected marriage. Never. Christians today still don't respect their own marriages. Feeling a lot of scorn right now. I'm very angry. I do not like what I have seen, and I really don't like that I've told you, because you're not going to like it. And I don't mean you're not going to thumbs it up and not share it. I mean, this is going to take, look, it's taken me 5 years to speak it out loud from the first time I thought it, and I knew it was right because I know what revelation feels like when it happens to me. As a philosopher, it was unethical, in fact, immoral, wrong, and evil to tell you. As Philelitean prophet, I have no choice. If I don't, I'm lying. And if I'm lying, I'm not a lover of the truth. I'm withholding. So there we have it, folks. 26 minutes of my walk uphill to home. And I feel hungry and hollowed out inside. That hollowed out inside feeling is enlightenment. The reason Moses hid his face, and at the end Jesus spent most of his time alone, especially after his time in the desert with the devil, it's because it becomes difficult to look at people. It becomes difficult for people to look at you. They meet your eyes and they see too much. They see you seeing too much. And they have to turn their face away. So it's just easier if you have transition lenses in the sun, or you mostly avoid eye contact. The longer this goes on, the more I'm going to change. The longer I'm alone in this, with no one to really talk it out with, nobody to argue with me that I'm wrong about all this, the more set in it I'm going to become, the more comfortable in it I'm going to get. And it's going to make me weirder. Right now I'm just kind of a nerdy, hippie, free spirit who chose homelessness over the trauma of managing a life that's too big for him. Who chose to risk starvation to throw himself on the mercy of strangers, rather than, I don't even know what it looks like if I accept a job and I make the $20 or the $25 an hour that I need to survive in this town. I don't know what that looks like for me. There's no future in that. You know, if I'm looking for an out, I see no out in that. It's just more the same, more. All right, I go back to what didn't work, and then what? Then I try to get the marriage right, try to get the wife right, try to have a kid. With everything I've said, I don't think you're really listening to me if you think that's an option for me. I'm not putting babies in a 16-year-old. And I'm not putting babies in someone over 28. Someone that you'll decide is age appropriate because you have opinions about things you can't understand. And what legacy do I have to give? A last name I don't use? How does that make sense? Well, everybody wants to have a kid. Yeah, okay, well, adoption is the same. It's the same. When all you're worried about is passing on a legacy. We keep talking about this, especially in the context of John, that adoption in the cosmogony still works. It's still valid. So I've always just assumed, especially when I got married to a Democrat and a college-educated liberal who just arbitrarily refused to have children, I just kind of assumed marrying her that I was just never going to have kids, and that it was going to come down to making enough money as a writer and as a thinker to support like a homeless, not a homeless, like a orphanage or something, and then just end up like Dickens. Now see, people accuse Dickens of being a pervert, but Dickens invested in and ran an orphanage and then ended up adopting a bunch of like 13-year-old girls, and just spent the twilight years of his life surrounded by teenage girls. But none of them ever claimed impropriety. Nobody ever suspected impropriety at the time. Young girls are just, they're more fun to be around because you don't have to relate to them with your life experience. Their innocence it rubs off on you. It's cleansing and pure in its own right, much like the woman who she ointments Jesus's feet. The act is just nice in its own right. It just feels good in its own right. And so if Jesus is engaging with Greek Epicureanism, and of course he is, he's engaging in, you got to remember, we're still in the context of Nazareth and anything good coming out of Nazareth, and what we're talking about is hedonism. Hedonism is not a modern word or a modern word or a modern context. Hedonism is a very real thing in the Roman context. You were required as a rich person to spend your money. And there comes a point where you can't buy enough factories. There's just not enough hotels in the whole world to buy. Because you get into the modern U.S. They didn't want an investor class, and they didn't want a real estate class. But so you get the modern American economy. And so what they did is the rich would just throw these elaborate and expensive and ridiculous parties. You have to spend your money. You have to put your slaves to use. You have to put all those factories to use doing something other than feeding the people of Rome, right? And so hedonism was very real. And one of the things you could spend a fabulous amount of money on, if you haven't watched Wolf of Wall Street, I don't know what the fuck's wrong with you, but one thing that you can spend a fabulous amount of money on, if what you need to do is spend a shitload of money and not get the IRS or the government or the tax collector's attention, is hookers. Today, still, if you need to get rid of money, there's a woman willing to make it disappear for you. That's very real. It's not even a negative judgment on women. Probably since before we were meaningfully Homo sapiens. it has been human women who modify their bodies and their appearance for sexual selective purposes. The human male is useful in his own right. This is why I say that marriages only benefit the woman. The woman gets safety, she gets security, she gets food, she gets clothes, she gets jewelry, she gets whatever the fuck she wants. Because what the man wants is inside her body. And so, like, men only want one thing from women. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but yeah, women aren't psychologically stimulating to men. Most people are only interested in what they already know. And so, like, the idea that women want you to take an interest in them and ask them a bunch of questions about themselves, probing personal questions. Those questions are only designed by predators to make you lower your guard so they can get what they want and leave. Those aren't questions that a potential future mate asks. You're not going to spend your time with your wife asking her about her favorite color or her favorite flower. You only need to hear that once. If she has to say it more than once, you're divorced already. The relationship is already over. You're already a bad husband, and she's already going to talk shit about you to her friends, but say things like, oh, but I love him. Oh, I'm invested in the relationship. Oh, I love my kids with him. Right? You have access to the same women's television and the same women's magazines that I do, man. The things you need to know about your partner are what she's like in stressful situations. What's she like with her family? How does she talk to you? Will she make eye contact with you? Is she clearly attracted to you? Do you have to persist in getting her attention for her to notice you? Do you have to take her away from things that aren't you in order for her to want to be around you? These are the things you want to know. You want to know if when you're sitting in the living room and you're both watching different things, you're on your phone or reading a book and she's watching a TV show, is she thinking poison thoughts about how you're not doing what she's doing in a more forthright way? Because she's going to think those poison thoughts if she thinks that you have to be constantly nagging her with bullshit questions. You need to know if she can tell a story in a way that you're going to be able to cope with for 50 years, because she's never going to learn. She's never going to learn. She's already got the pussy, boys. She's never going to learn how to tell a story in a way that makes you laugh. So if she doesn't make you laugh, she's not going to start making you laugh in 30 years. You want to pick a girl that you actually like, that you're actually curious about. You want to pick a girl whose hand you just compulsively want to hold, and you don't care if anybody sees. And it doesn't matter what she looks like, because what you don't get, boys, is that if you love her, she'll lose the weight. If she's big, whatever, she'll lose the weight. If she's tall, she'll wear flats. If her tits are small, fuck, she'll let you put implants in there. All she wants is for you to love her. It's really that simple. All she wants is for you to love her for something other than the children. And then once the children show up, you have to keep loving her for something other than the children. It can't be, well, I'm showing her I love her by taking care of the children and staying. No, fuck you. You shouldn't have fucked her in the first place. You have a hand. Fuck you. Hardcore porn is way too easy to get a hold of to go around throwing sin babies at the world. I don't care if it's unethical or amoral. They got paid. I'm doing this for free. Just passed out real relationship advice to you for free. You will never hear all of that all at once from a relationship guru, because you'll never come back for more. You'll pick one relationship and you will be locked in forever, and it'll be awesome. You're asking me, well, why didn't your marriage work? My marriage worked because she didn't really want to be with me. She just wanted someone to be with her. So once her life became about working off her student debt, all she really wanted was someone to pay off her student debt for her. And so she was exactly the kind of person I'm telling you about. I have experience with all these evils that I'm telling you you don't want to commit. And I'm also telling you, don't talk bad about this person. She wasn't even 30 yet when she left. Her life is probably still a ball of shit. She's made all the wrong choices. But see, this is the thing. Insisting on being allowed to make your own choices and make your own mistakes means that you're mostly going to make the wrong choices. Which is why I've kept my life so simple, my goals so easy. Not easy to attain, just like easy going, right? Zen, Tao, a leaf on a stream. And that's why I've cut my goals to the very, very bare bones. I want to speak the truth. I want to talk about things that keep me engaged. I want to earn a few dollars a day so I can eat. And I want to be unmolested by the cops. I want to build a reputation of kindness and generosity. And I want to be welcome in the places that I go. Which means that I want to make sure that I don't stink. Which means that I have to manage my physical labor. I have to manage where I'm walking, how far I'm walking, what times of day I'm walking. And it means also that if I do break down and get a job for the stability of at least the paycheck, I have to be very careful about what kind of work I do. Say I take that McDonald's job. It's still going to be a month before I'm in a home. It's going to be a month before I get paid if they're still on a bi-weekly. So I'm working in that hot-ass kitchen, sweating for a month without a shower. And so that puts you in the position where you have to go back to prostitution. All right, well, I'll trade you sexual favors if you let me use your shower. And so we're right back to cult sex stuff. We're right back to trading iniquities to get by. And who does that really benefit? Well, it benefits the people who take advantage of me, right? I was talking to you on my way down here this morning about conditions. Well, prostitution has unspoken conditions. People get jealous. They want to be the only one with your time. They want to be the only one giving you money. They want to be someone that you rely on, that you depend on. Most sexual relationships are about failed parents. They're about failed developmental stages of childhood with a particular parent. And so if you know that, you can guide people through it in a way that they don't even know is happening. And when they realize they've done that, they give you a lot of money. A lot of it. But then they realize that you can do it for other people too. So they want to lock you in to a relationship. Usually they want you to be the father of their child, stepfather. And so then it puts you in a position you have to be strong, you have to be stiff-necked. And you have to be cruel to a certain degree. It's like, look, I was just trying to help you with the thing that you didn't know you needed help with. I came into your life. I forthrightly tried to help with what I could see was an area of deficiency. I talked about psychics are the kind of people who go out looking for people who need help. So they have to be humble. Well, I don't go out looking for people who need help. People who need help find me. I used to call myself a techno shaman. I mostly just, oh God, I thought that guy's wheels was a woman running under his truck. Anyway, I used to call myself a techno shaman because most of what I do is meditate in the wilderness of the internet and people find me. Broken people find me. Shaman is not, I use techno shaman because it's a class in one of those video games, but I should really call myself something more like a techno wilder, or really a techno medicine man. Because all medicine men were doing for the most part was getting you high. And so there's a certain amount of like, Jesus is passing out opium. Because for a long time that was the best they could do. But they had a lot of different ways to administer it. So maybe some of these ointments that he's passing out, these unguents, are just straight up straight up opium and cannabinoid compounds. Because we know they were doing both. And the women would have gotten in trouble with it, with the opium especially, because the word for an apothecary in Latin is poisoner. And there's a reason for that, and it isn't just because they poisoned people. It was because a lot of the medicines that had efficacy were derived from venom. It's just one of those freak things. Kind of lends some credence to some of the ideas of homeopathy, even though homeopathy itself is a bunch of bullshit. Some of the ideas of what's it called? Complementary magic. So like mandragora roots are believed to be magical because they're shaped like humans, roughly. I'm almost home and I need to not draw attention to myself, so maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to say goodnight to you here. Thank you to anyone who catches up with these and watches them and listens to them and learns anything, finds themselves lying awake at night, reshuffling the Rolodex of their mind and putting things in a new order, finds themselves smiling at a stranger and having a conversation maybe they wouldn't have had because they weren't waiting to be asked something inane. Maybe they just said, "Hey, what's up in your life?" And you answered honestly. Or maybe you took the initiative and you walked over to somebody who was sitting by themselves and said, "Hey, what's up with you? Who are you? I'm me. This is what I do. What do you like? Let's talk about that. Teach me. You don't even have to teach me. Just talk to me about it and let me ask you forthright questions." And then you're becoming a little bit more like me. Just a little bit more like me. I don't do that much to strangers, as I told you this morning, because strangers don't like it. Because they think you're going to be a gregarious Midwesterner who just wants to talk their head off about your bullshit. And then you don't know when the conversation's over and how to say goodbye. Well, there you go. You now know what not to do. Don't do what you don't like done, and do what you would like done. If you want a golden rule that's going to take you all the way to heaven, do unto others what you like done unto you. If there's a time and a place to prefer to apologize as opposed to ask permission, it's acts of love. And I don't mean love making. I mean acts of kindness. I mean acts of service. I mean charity. Solving someone's problems for them takes away their ability to have solved the problem. Do you not understand that? Takes away their freedom, takes away their agency, takes away their personhood, takes away their dignity. If someone asks you for help, don't help. Ask how you can help. Well, what would be helpful? And when they tell you, do it. Right then, without hesitating. And so when I tell you that if you can't help me by giving me money, and I understand, we're all poor. This Biden economy is only going to get worse if you elect Kamala Harris. We're all poor. If you can't help me directly, be kind to a stranger for me, so I don't have to worry that every single loner nerd who has been forgotten by this bullshit world we live in goes to sleep without someone smiling at them. Just smile at a stranger. It will change your day. All right. This is when I'm supposed to tell you I love you, and that I think the best of you, and that I see a bright future for you, and thank you for listening. But you haven't yet done any of those things. You haven't earned them yet. Not at time of recording. And what Jesus didn't do was give people partial credit. God doesn't give partial credit. God doesn't pay an hourly wage. God doesn't love you like a parent. God loves you like a guy with a stick. And there is no psycho pump yet. No one's done it. Jesus did not get between you and God when it comes to the afterlife. He harrowed hell, but you know what else he did? He set it up to incinerate you. It no longer stores you so you can be summoned. It incinerates you. Imagination is over, and it's been over for 2,000 years. It's time to do better. It's time to seek truth. It's time to build something lasting. Shaggy out.